My name's Don.
And I'm Peter.
And we are two plebs not talking about the news today.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon indeed. So, since there are a lot more people here than there were last year, it seems worthy to say what we're doing again.
Right. I think this time last year, I think we barely had like 100 subs or something like that.
That sounds about right. So, thanks everybody.
Yeah.
We're happy to see all of you. In the meantime, though, this will be the last show of the week.
Yes.
We're not posting a show on Thanksgiving or the day after. Go enjoy your families. Same thing we told you last year.
Right.
But at least as importantly, it seems worthy, probably every year, forever, to talk about how it is that we actually got Thanksgiving. Because the things that get published in the media and in school are what is commonly known as bullshit. And, it's the right-wing talking points about Thanksgiving, and yet it's actually the story of Thanksgiving.
Right.
So apparently, once again, right-wing talking points are just what happened, and, hating white people is what the left does.
Right.
So that's nice.
Which means, all of the stuff that would be not true is left-wing talking points on Thanksgiving?
It's continuously their arguments.
Yeah.
So, with all of that out of the way, the original story of Thanksgiving was, in fact, the story of pilgrims coming to the United States.
Right.
Or call them pilgrims if you want. I'm not that attached to terminology here.
Right.
And the original settlers, and for some reason I don't remember the guy's name right now. I'm sure chat is furiously, or the comment section is furiously typing because I don't remember the guy's name.
Right.
And there will be 100 comments that say it, so thanks in advance.
No, there will be 100 links to our previous video where you said the guy's name.
To the timestamp. It's right here, you idiot. You said it last year.
Right.
Which, just as good. But the original head of the settlement started the, socialism.
Right.
And he said, look, what we're going to do is we're going to, for everybody who can work, you're going to work as much as you can, and that's, going to be what feeds us, and for those that can't work, we're going to take care of you. Which sounds very much like from each according to his ability, to each according to their need.
Right.
And in a shocking turn of events, what happened was that suddenly nobody could work.
Right.
And everyone was starving.
Right.
Now, okay, I get it. But socialism wasn't really a thing at the time. I understand.
You're right. This would be one of the first attempts in America at socialism. It didn't work.
And so, after, I think, 2 seasons of this, right, the head of the little colony down there went, this ain't going to work.
Right.
I don't know what it is here that is the problem, but I do know that this ain't working. So what he did is he took every adult male, look, understand the times, stop with your progressivism.
Right, that was back then. We're not talking about now.
And he said, look, family is what it came down to, or
right.
Thus, adult male, you started your own family at the time, presumably. And he said, look, here's a plot of your own land, grow what you grow, that's on you. You do whatever you want with this. And, there will be no more subsidies for anything, is what it came down to. We're not helping anybody out. You now have things to take care of yourself, so take care of yourself. And, well, yes, some of the little tidbits of crap that you were taught in school, fish on crops and sort of things, were useful and helpful. There was none of this, the Indians showed up and then everything was amazing, because they were there, too, during the time of the socialism crap.
Right.
And not doing any better. However, one grow season later was this giant harvest and bounty that otherwise hadn't existed since they got there.
Right.
And once again, the guy at the head of this colony is not, an economist with 300, 400 years of information that he couldn't possibly have yet.
Right.
So he just went, well, it's working. So this is what we're doing.
Yeah, this worked. We'll keep doing it.
And government subsidization effectively came down to law enforcement. And that was it.
Right.
That's all they did. Because turns out, when you tell people, no, really, you have to take care of yourself, they do. When you tell them, well, if you have kind of a problem, then
I'm sure the rest of the community will be able to help you out.
We'll take care of it, and eventually all of the same problems persist. And by the way, this you will hear every year that someone tells this story. Oh, this is all bullshit. They made it up from nowhere. It's the only documentation we have about the area, about the time.
Right.
Is
It's
his journal.
Yeah, all the other stories are kind of, word of mouth passed down through the ages. We're looking at concrete documentation that's there.
Right. And by the way, when it's, well, but he didn't, it's not really clear and all these other kinds of things that everybody says when they don't want to hear what you're telling them.
Right.
He pretty meticulously documented this. It's available on the internet, and if I remember, I'll probably put it in the description of this, but
Right.
no promises there because I didn't go get it in advance. But really, for the first 2 years, it's kind of this harrowing tale of everyone
Just
dying.
barely surviving
Right.
as a community.
And all of the sudden, it's, well, so we changed what we were doing, and then all of this happened, right?
Right.
And so, look, because this is relevant to current political stance, what do you hear every day? Well, if we take away welfare, then everything's going to fall apart. Well, again, we have an example of that in American history.
We do.
That's not what happened,
Nope.
right? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure we've been too far into the entitlement at this point for not, for no one to lose their mind over that. But
Right.
look, in a shocking turn of events, people will take care of themselves. You just have to make them. And by that, I mean not give them a bunch of stuff.
Right.
Now, if anything in this world should, give any of us hope for all of the black pills that are going around about, well, but if the welfare state collapses, then Baltimore is going to burn down. Well, look, Baltimore burns down like every couple of weeks, so I don't know
Big
that's
difference.
really. I mean, what are we worried about here? One more building worth of property damage?
Right.
Forgive my cynicism, but look,
Right, no.
this has to stop.
No, if it, yeah, you're right. If the welfare system just up and disappeared, you can expect civil unrest.
Probably. And even if there was, and by the way, he doesn't say this was just some immediate magical transformation. There were, of course, problems. People were upset that they had to go back to doing, some people were upset that they had to go back to doing things for themselves. But look, within a year, the turnaround was so amazing that we now have a holiday called Thanksgiving.
Right.
Okay, so it takes what? 5 years? Is that what we're arguing here?
Probably.
Well, if we did that, is it going to change the nation into such prosperity that we will need to mark a new holiday on the calendar? Because, I mean,
We can hope.
if that's what I'm supposed to be, supposed to see on the far end of that 5 years, maybe we should suck up the 5 years,
Right.
right? And yes, I know, low time preference. Yeah, got it. Well, that's not going to happen, sadly, right? If only because we keep propagating these stories, like the story of Thanksgiving,
Right.
where the white man was an idiot and couldn't do nothing, and the noble savage who never did nothing wrong came by and told him all the things. None of that happened.
Right.
Look, is there some world where anyone ever knows absolutely nothing, talks to somebody else who knows everything, and then it is all of the world's problems are immediately fixed?
No.
And
Because
yet
the world has problems.
right, and yet we're expected to believe that's what happened at the original Thanksgiving. And look, not to be overly dramatic about this, but we propagandize our kids with this crap for a decade
Right.
before anyone even likely could hear the true story of Thanksgiving.
Right. I mean, because when you start learning a lot more about, just the surrounding ingredients to that story, like, well, yeah, no, the Pilgrims were having a hard time farming. They just couldn't figure out until the nomadic tribes
Right.
of Native Americans came in and showed them how to farm. If they're nomadic tribes, they don't farm.
Well, you would think, right, that would stand to reason. But look,
But somehow they knew.
go take a look at what is in your kid's history book.
I know.
And that's what it is.
I know that's what it is. That's what I got when I was a kid, too.
Right.
But then you start going into further history, then you find out, well, all the Native American tribes were all nomadic. They don't farm.
Right. But no one goes back and corrects this, right?
Of course not.
And by the way, the only people who really ever get any information about this at this point are fairly conservative schools in the history department. Everybody else just goes like, well, yeah, I mean, Thanksgiving, the Pilgrims were idiots and they were all going to die, and the Noble Savage came by and fixed everything.
Right.
Which, by the way, the Noble Savage thing is a complete myth, too.
Right. Well, and I'm pretty sure my previous statements of they don't farm will be corrected by the comment section, because it is known that they had common places to set down camps because they had known routes, and they were known to occasionally plant some things in those areas to make it more plentiful for them when they came back the next year.
Sure.
So, but farming per se was not a thing.
No, not at all. Right? And we keep lying to ourselves with all of this crap at the same time that we're telling each other, those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. Well, here we are, folks.
We studied history, and that's not what happened.
No, we didn't study history. We studied a large fiction, right?
Right.
You know, I mean, if you... Harry Potter's a once popular fictional book. Right?
Yes.
If you... And by the way, I say that mockingly as though people aren't literally, right now, invariably, posting things on the internet about, well, even in Harry Potter we knew that this was a bad thing, as though going to a work of fiction to, you know, look back at history to determine how to act in the future is a good idea. But we keep doing it. And we do it everywhere.
We do.
So I'm not surprised that this continues. And by the way, it's not going to end anytime soon.
Oh, no.
That's simply not a thing. Because this, you know, I made a turkey with my palm is more important than learning what actually happened and why we have a Thanksgiving, right?
Right.
Because we're such a nation of opulence at this point that, like, the only thing that matters about Thanksgiving is the goddamn turkey anyway. So... yeah.
Turkey tacos.
Exactly, right? And this is what we get. And we have even, I mean, go Google Thanksgiving Day food. You won't find a cornucopia anywhere.
Nope.
Right? It's not a thing. And the actual ties to the Thanksgiving things we have eliminated en masse over the years.
Right. I mean, I've seen a couple of documentaries surrounding Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And they're like, all the stuff we commonly throw down on the table for Thanksgiving, they didn't have back then.
Right. And as close as you get is if you are a big fan of corn on Thanksgiving. That's it.
Corn and turkey.
Yeah.
Because there were turkeys.
All right, fair.
But other than that, no, nothing else would have matched up.
Probably not, right? And look, a lot of that is just evolution of culture. It's still,
right.
You know, hey, we have at least a moment of opulence here. And really, in this country, we have 365.25 days a year of opulence. But
right.
Look, it's Thanksgiving, so we're making a big meal. And all right, there's some cultural ties to it. And all of that is fine, except that we make these holidays to remember something.
Right.
What other holiday do we do this to, right? And before anybody answers, I know lots of them, right?
Right.
Like that no one in the country can tell the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day.
Right.
Well, I don't know. It's one of the two. Okay.
There's a difference.
Yeah. And as we get away from what those things meant, we're losing any idea of what our own history is.
Mm-hmm.
Because the premise of these things is, well, we may as well take one day, in the case of Thanksgiving, we may as well take one day a year to remember that deciding to, you know, subsidize the poor and that we're all going to do this from each according to his ability to each according to his need crap is a bad idea. And even before the founding of the country, we had evidence of that.
Right.
And look, this capitalism thing that's what does it, right? Because, look, no one was arguing that what he did was institute capitalism at the time because it wasn't on the table.
Right.
This wasn't a premise. This guy didn't have an agenda other than what gets food on the table.
Right. What gets everybody fed and living and prospering.
And yet, we have to shy away from that. And we have to get rid of this, right?
Right.
Because if we don't, then when I come to you and I say, well, universal health care, you go, yeah, I think we all know how that works out.
Right.
And then you don't get to have, well, but I want it. It feels good. Like, yeah, we know.
It feels good. We understand that. You really want it. Well, we understand that too. I prefer not to have to pay for shit. And that's the illusion you're handed.
Right.
that you don't have to pay for the shit until you see your tax increase.
Well, so therein is the problem, right? So we pay people to live,
Right.
right, without doing any work. And so people live without doing any work. And then we pay to take care of their health without doing any work. These people are not paying for this.
Right.
In no way, shape, or form are they paying for this. And so what has long been a problem is people that were on the cusp, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked a few times about welfare being about an $18 an hour job,
Right.
which I get criticized for, but sorry, facts is facts. It's about $18 an hour.
I thought it was 15, but
No. And so if you make $17 an hour and you are, I don't know, any of the people that qualify for welfare, right?
right.
Well, look, it's $1 an hour pay raise to get on welfare.
Why not?
You know?
Right.
Well, but Don, the problem is Walmart. The problem isn't Walmart, right? Walmart can't go, hey, welfare state, pay them more money if there's not a welfare state.
Right.
And this is all the same problem, right? People will do as little work as possible to get whatever they can.
Right.
It's not new or surprising.
No.
And all the way back to, it's like far, it's 1510 or something like that, this happened. We knew that. And for some reason we have to keep learning it because it feels bad.
Well, time and time again, back to we don't pay attention to what has happened in history. We forget, and then we repeat.
Usually, yeah.
But there's a much larger population now than there was then.
Yeah.
So people would argue, it's like, well, no, the problem's just too large. I'm like, it's the exact same problem, just the number of people who will be affected is increased.
Sure. Well, so quite a while back, we did the, scaling of scope episode, right?
Right.
And I got a lot of criticism for that. But look, this is the simple fact of the matter is all that's saying, well, there's more people, so the problem's too big is just pulling out the lens until the question is unsolvable, right? Until there's no answer. Like, well, you couldn't possibly account for all of these things. No, but I don't have to. Right? This is the problem. We knew from the jump that this was the problem.
Right.
Let's just solve it. And no one wants to hear that because that's not political nuance. Well, I don't care.
I don't care. We want the problem solved, not mitigated, not smoothed over. We want it actually fixed.
Well, so there's a presumption that we as a people do, and I don't think we do.
No, I think you're right. I don't think there's a lot of people who don't want that fixed.
And I think, as ridiculous as this is going to sound, step one to changing that mentality, honestly, one thing if I had to do to change that mentality, tell the true story of Thanksgiving and stop the bullshit.
Yeah.
And by itself, I mean, you'd have to go through a lot of other things, but by itself, this would stop the kindergarten age indoctrination into socialism.
Yeah.
Into white guilt. Because honestly, that's what that is.
Right.
You were crap, and then the Native Americans came by, and then we killed a bunch of them. So we killed our saviors and everything would be great if you didn't. Stupid white people.
Right.
I mean, there's so much.
Yeah, you white people are taught to feel guilty all the time.
Exactly, right? And so there's so much of this whole culture war that is wrapped up in just this one story. And for anybody who's wondering, that tells you how far back the culture war goes. Because long before we were talking about whether or not lactatia was an acceptable thing, we were saying Native Americans are good, white people are bad, all of this happened because noble people that we screwed.
Right.
Look,
Because we screwed them, there's no doubt about that.
maybe it's hindsight, but this was the culture war.
Yeah.
And it was much smaller. Razor Fist has a video, of all people to bring up today, in which he talks about communists and progressives in, I want to say the 50s, talking about making movies in which they said, I don't want to make communist propaganda films. No one watches them. I want to make a film that has one drop of progressive messaging in it, because people will accept that. Well, guess what? This is, in my opinion, probably one of our very first drops.
Yeah.
And we keep doing it. So yeah, when I say change the Thanksgiving Day story back to what it should be, is probably a headlining thing we can do. I'm not kidding.
I know. Because, I mean, you're talking like, yeah, it's a drop and a drop and a drop, and eventually all those drops together become an ocean.
And that's the end of our show for the day.
That's right. It's taco time.
However, before we go, we'd appreciate it if you shared us around.
You can find us on YouTube,
BitChute,
Facebook,
Twitter,
Patreon,
and Maker Support.
Thanks for stopping by.